I always look at those 4 records that each band put out. Each one of those records does not sound the same, but yet they are part of this whole like fucking volcano that just erupted.
We were friends with everybody, but we never saw each other. We were always different tours. You know, we were always touring and working this music because that groundswell we talked about, it was coming up.
Whoever gave us that platform to have a big four, I don't even know who put the four together and who gave us that platform, to be honest with you.
The media called us the big four. We didn't. I mean, I don't think any one of us thought enough about the other three to even consider being the big four or anything.
Can't deny that, you know, Rain and Blood, it's an onslaught.
When we first started getting faster and heavier, you know, people didn't really know what to think. And people just look at you like, what the hell are these guys trying to do? But it didn't take long for it to catch on.
I would say before we did the Clash of the Titans tour, I think Slayer hated everybody, so I don't think there was that much of a relationship with a lot of bands.
It was like a friendly competition. You knew you had to work hard and stay on the road and get in front of as many people as you could because these other bands are going to do it too.
I've had so many memories with them over the years. They've done so many tours with Slayer.
The past couple of years, we've been together a lot, touring, you know.
Not just Clash of the Titans, not just Big Fours, just Slayer and Anthrax. We've been touring off and on for fuck of a long time in many different formats and many different like time periods. It's crazy how much they played with us.
The relationship just grew, and yeah, I really love those guys. I think they created something that nobody else did. They had their own sound, they had their own style, and that was it. Don't fuck with it.
Me and Frankie became really good friends over the last, I have no concept of time, so probably 20 years.
First off, you know, I'm a lightweight drinker. I don't know if people know that. I readily admit it. I can't handle booze. I'm a cheap date. Kerry King, my friend, and his wife gave me this cup because they know I'm a wuss. They give me a small cup to have my drinks in now. So I could just, it's a small, they call it the bellow shot. I had to come up with the reason of not going to my bus and throwing up because I was tired of doing it every night. The way he rolls, I can never keep up with that. And I admit it.
Which tour was that? When was
every
that?
Tour. Every
You know, Megadeth and Slayer, we toured together quite a lot.
You need that work ethic for this because remember, back when this stuff was coming up, nobody on radio was playing it. We didn't get it. You had to make your own way, right? And the only way to do that is to stay on the road and play in front of audiences and building your audiences. I think that's really important.
I mean, obviously the early records, that was the time frame when we were all kids and we had stuff to prove. And, you know, we didn't know much about the world and we were pointing our finger at everybody.
You know, the thing about Dave Mustaine to me is like, as far as an architect of this kind of music, I think he's the originator.
One of the things that's fabulous about us, these two groups in the Big Four, is that we've kept a little bit of our youthfulness still. And, you know, everything isn't so serious.
Yeah, it was a goof. And I learned all my things, you know, my sarcasm or whatever I have, my ball busting came from the road. That's why I have a sewer mouth. You know, that's why I curse the way I curse, because I've been on the road all my life. This was my growing up. The guys in this band are my family. Like, I see them more than I grew up with my brothers and sisters. Really, I saw them more because I was always with Anthrax. No matter what, we were always on the road building this swelling career.
We were on tour, and Joey, he was getting ready to go out on stage, and he was dressed, and he looked really terrible. And I said, Joey, I said, you know what, you're a front man. You're the guy everybody looks to, you know? You need to have class. I said, I'm going to give you one of my black tailored shirts, and I'm going to give you one of my Italian leather belts. So he puts the shirt on and tucks the shirt, and I said, nope, shirt doesn't get tucked in. You're going to have a little bit of the front buckle sticking out, and then that's it. And he started wearing that, and he looked so good. And then all of a sudden, he got his mojo, and he really started to Stan different, and I was so proud of him.
I mean, I think it's awesome. I'm honored and privileged to be a part of that. And, you know, obviously we've all had our moments to achieve, to reach whatever goal that was to have the Big Four name.
And we stayed on the road and built our name. And I think all these bands, the Big Four bands, did that. There's so many great times and shitty times, but more great times because it was the coming up, coming of age, also coming of age for us as humans.
We were able to set up a headline run and went out and started on a headline run that lasted all through the spring and all through the summer. We were literally out there as more and more dates were getting added. It was just like snowballing. At that point, that's really how it started. The touring just never stopped.
I mean, Metallica, you know, we toured together in Master of Puppets. We started to get to know each other quite well.
We're on Spreading. Metallica's on Master of Puppets. Our old friends are really starting to blow up. Like, they had already done the Ozzy tour. They had already supported Ozzy in the States. So things were really blowing up for them. Master may have already gone gold at that point. They asked us if we want to go to Europe with them in the fall of '86. Of course, because we hadn't actually seen that much of each other all of a sudden. Like, whereas we had been together, 83, 84. Now it's like we'd randomly bump into each other. So yes, of course, we would love to come play shows together. So you got Metallica, Anthrax, UK dates, and then dates all across Europe.
I mean, I always thought of Metallica as friends, basically. The first time I met them, it was just an immediate type of like kinship, you know? You like that? Yeah, I love that. Oh my God, that's such a great album, you know, shit like that. And then it just kind of bloomed from there.
We have this triumphant UK tour with Metallica together.
It was an exciting time. And it was such a privilege to be on tour together and just hang.
And the shows are crazy. I mean, crazy. Like 5,000-6,000 kids coming out to these gigs.
And as soon as you came on, you knew it, man. They were ready. Metal kids were ready for it. It was every night. Every night was awesome.
And we're hanging out every night. You know, after the shows, we watch them play, and then we all hang out and rage until we, you know, get on the buses and leave for the next city. We get on the bus and go. And wake up the next morning, parked out in front of a hotel in Copenhagen, which was odd because we generally didn't get hotels.
There was no phones back then. There's no emails, no texting.
I said, "Hey, you know, what's going on? Why are we here? In a hotel?" And he said, "There's a terrible accident last night on the way down from Stockholm. Metallica's bus crashed, and it flipped over, and Cliff Burton was killed in the accident."
You know, the thing is, like, you're never prepared. Nobody was prepared for anything like that to happen because the momentum was so high. You know what I mean? Everybody was on such a high. Last thing we said, see you tomorrow, day off. We'll go out, we'll blah, blah, blah. Go to the stores, go out for drinks, whatever. It was just the next day, you know?
Cliff was the first person I knew that I was actually really close to, that I was friends with. And to go in such an unbelievably crazy, tragic way.
It wasn't real. As honest as I could be, it wasn't real. That can't happen.
Here I was, 20, 21 years old, maybe, whatever. And it's just shocking.
Let alone what it did to those guys, to Lars and Kirk and James. Can't imagine what it meant to them and to have to process that.
And you don't know what to do. And all you could do is just hug people, and because that's what you do. That's the emotion that comes out. And you cry a lot, and you scream a lot, and you're angry. And that's what we did that night.
I got home to New York, packed my crap, and got on another plane the next morning straight to San Francisco because I wanted to be there for the funeral. And flew straight to San Francisco and actually stayed with James. Spent like a week out there in San Francisco in the Bay Area with those guys. Like every day we would drive out to Kirk's mom's house and we would just kind of all hang around, all their friends and other band dudes, I met Mike Burton from Faith No More and all of Cliff's friends, just hung out there for a week while they, just told stories.
One story that always stood out to me, and I remember telling James this story. After I told him the story, he just like thank you so much for telling me this, because I don't remember a lot from that time either. One day on tour, we had a day off. I think it was in England somewhere. Scott, myself, Cliff, and Kirk, we went to breakfast. And I said, dude, what does James say right before the lead section in Master of Puppets? You know, it's like, I can't make it out. Kirk and Cliff look at each other, and Cliff goes, pancakes. I think he says pancakes. And I'm like, oh, that's it. He says pancakes. So for the rest of the tour, whenever they would play, well, they would play that song, of course. Whenever they'd come to that part, Cliff would always look over to me and scream, pancakes. And it became a thing. So I told James this story, and then he started saying it, and it became a thing. And it was a way, I guess, of just kind of remembering Cliff and kind of celebrating his sense of humor.
He had a unique kind of thought process of what bass should be that I loved, that I said, man, that's so outside the box. So I always found it fascinating, and I always looked at from the side of the stage what he was doing with the wah and how he worked, and how much, for me, I watched his foot and how much pressure he was giving it, and what made the biggest wow, you know, there's those great wailing, and sometimes it sounded like whales in the ocean sometimes. Even at that early age, think about how young Cliff was, and he had that mind to make those sounds.
During our shows, he would be behind the amp, headbanging like crazy. Just loved the music.
Cliff always went for it, and I love that spirit. He always went for it. Be yourself and always go for it. That's the greatest lesson, man. So that's, for me, I always have that about Cliff. Be yourself and go for it. That's what he always did. Those guys, I got to give them a lot of credit, man, because they, you know, after healing, and they brushed themselves off and continued to be on the road to the biggest group in the world. And that's something to say, man. It's pretty awesome that they can, you know, with him in spirit, because Cliff will always be part of Metallica.
We go into 87, and we had already find out, you know, I think Metallica had already announced that Jason Newsted, you know, he was now going to be the new bass player for Metallica. And we get the call like late 86. Do you want to come and make up some of the shows that got canceled after the accident? Of course, there's nothing we would want more than to go back. I kind of get, you know, that at least in some way have some kind of closure.
We kept going, you know, we played with Metallica and all those shows. We continued that tour. It was great. I made a lot of new fans, very important for the band. And playing Among the Living, all knowing Among the Living was dedicated to Cliff.
It felt the right thing to do, because the guy was such a big part of it all.
Those guys were saying it all the time. The last thing Cliff would want us to do would be to stop making music. That guy was heads and shoulders above us as a musician, above all of us. He knew theory and harmony, and the last thing he would want would be for the mission they were on to stop.
You know, I don't want to get too deep here, but the guy did give a lot to people. And I guess in our way, it was our way of just saying, you know, this record's for you.
Among the Living was dedicated to Cliff because he was one of us.
Among the Living.
Among the Living.
Among the Living.
Among the Living.
It's Among the Living.
And Among is still one of my all-time favorite records by anybody.
Among the Living is one of the best metal albums ever made.